Hey my loves, and welcome back to another episode of Hunting the Unseen. And if you've noticed, we are not in a normal area or our house. We're actually doing something special, something different. And since we've hit the 500 mark and above, which I am very thankful for you guys, otherwise it wouldn't be possible. But if you're new to my channel, my name is Miranda Lee.
My name's Alex.
And this is Hunting the Unseen. So make sure you hit that red subscribe button right there and the bell next to it to get notified every time we upload to any of our series, and especially to this one. And then comment down below once you subscribe to get a post notification shout out at the end of one of our videos. And other than that, let's get into this video.
Here. Like, we had just gone through so much.
Even in the womb, Brittany Tomic of Brunswick felt her baby was special.
When I was pregnant, they found the cyst on her brain and the white spot in her heart.
The smoke signals were there. However, our Zola, nicknamed Zola, was born a healthy baby girl.
And then around 6 months, we noticed she was still like an infant. She wasn't progressing.
Tomic went to her pediatrician, who recommended therapy, but she still felt something was wrong.
She would just get fevers unexpectedly. She would scream through the night. The littlest ear infections would turn into pneumonia.
Next were the seizures. Year after year after year of seeing specialists. Eventually, an ENT recommended Zola get her tonsils removed to treat sleep apnea, which was causing her seizures. A routine procedure. Everything was fine. They went home.
And that's when she came in our room in the middle of the night, and she went to yell Mom, and she couldn't even get it out. All we saw was this black mass come out of her mouth, and this just dropped.
Zola was covered in blood, lying unresponsive on the floor. She was rushed to Akron Children's Hospital and immediately taken into the OR.
So she was almost out of blood, and she kept going unresponsive and then coming back. She never flatlined. An hour later, the doctor came out, and she said she was fine. She was going to be okay. Do you want to swing on this, Zola?
Zola fought for her life, and because of her strength, doctors discovered that the hemorrhage was caused by a rare genetic disorder called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
It affects the collagen, the connective tissue. So for most people, it's like they're put together with super glue, their bones and their tissues. Hers is like bubble gum.
There is no cure, only treatment. Zola will have a lifetime of bleeding, bruising, and pain. After a week at the hospital, Zola got to go home. And over the months following her recovery, Tomic says she started to notice a change in her 4-year-old.
And then that's when one night I was getting her ready for gymnastics. And out of nowhere, she just asked when she can see God again. And it took me back for a second. And I was like, Zola, what do you mean? You want to see God again? She's like, yeah, when do I get to see God again?
Tomic says despite never talking to Zola about her grave condition, Zola started talking to her parents about the time she died and went to see God.
A what? A what?
A passenger! Tomic says Zola described sitting next to Jesus and giving him a hug.
What did he say to you? What? Oh, that's so awesome.
Tomic says Zola even started drawing pictures of God in her heart.
You tell me what it looked like. There were a few times I picked her up from preschool, and the teacher was saying, she got in an argument again about God being real.
What do you have to say to people that are like, she's 4, it's her imagination?
It makes me sad that people would think that way and not believe. These are not things that we've put in her head.
Tomic believes Zola was saved that day, both physically and spiritually.
recently spoke about your experiences as a child at a conference on near-death experiences. So could you tell us again what you had experienced and what happened back then?
Also das war im Jahr 2003.
That was in 2003. I was 6 years old. I woke up early and had a really bad headache. I then immediately ran to my mother in the kitchen and said, "Mom, I have such a headache. Something's wrong." We were really worried about what was going on. 5 minutes later, I collapsed in bed, and it turned out that I had a cerebral hemorrhage. Of course, I was immediately taken to the hospital by ambulance. There, the doctors discovered that I had a brain hemorrhage, and I spent 14 days in intensive care.
Intensivstation dort gelegen. Und auf der Intensivstation hatte ich dann diese Nahtoderfahrung.
It was during that time I had the near-death experience. I more or less slipped out of my body, I would say. I was just lying there and suddenly I felt as if a layer was lifted off me.
Gelöst. Ja, also zuerst
Yes, a kind of layer was taken off me. And suddenly there was a change of scenery. All of a sudden, I was 2 meters up and saw myself lying there, myself with tubes leading to my head. And it was incredibly exciting because at that moment I didn't realize what was going on.
What do you mean by seeing yourself? Was it different from looking at yourself in the mirror, for example?
Yes, there is a difference because when I look in the mirror, I see myself as I'm now, right? But I was 2 meters up, which is not quite normal for a 6-year-old girl because I was about 1.20 meters tall then, or even shorter. And suddenly I was really high up and saw myself lying there on this bed. That's strange, isn't it? I was standing there and looking at myself lying there. I wouldn't say it was like a reflection in a mirror. And yet, I was lying there with tubes going to my head and some medical devices were beeping. Then doctors came in as well. At first, I didn't realize what was going on. You think, okay, And then you see yourself lying there and you think, okay, And you start thinking, if I'm standing here now at a height of about 2 meters and see myself lying there at the same time, something can't be right. So after a while, you start to realize that can't be right. And then I'm dead. It wasn't really bad when I realized that I was dead, but it was simply overwhelming to have this experience. Just to observe, I'm lying standing here at the same time. Something can't really fit together. I just observed myself for a moment and felt incredibly light. It was a lightness humans can't feel because we're stuck in our own bodies.
Weil wir einfach im Körper drinstecken. Und da ist man fühlt sich wie eine Feder.
I felt like a feather. Also, I was much higher, about 2 meters up. I consciously tried to look down and wanted to see what I looked like. I looked down and wanted to look at my feet, but didn't see any feet. Because as a soul, I had no feet, more or less. And then I tried to look at my hands and didn't see any hands either. And that's what's exciting. You experience something like that, but you don't see it. It was just a really great experience. The most impressive part was the unbelievable silence. A silence that I don't think we can experience at all in this world. It was like saying off, pause button, no background noise. You just see everything in slow motion. That's how I perceived it. It's a silence we cannot experience on Earth in such a way.
And what happened next?
Dann ging es so weiter, dass ich dann so links, also ich habe gerade auf meinen liegenden Körper halt geschaut.
I was looking at my lying body and then I moved to the left towards the door. Wait, it wasn't a door. It was a door frame. And this door frame was filled with light. Completely filled with light. I must say that this light had a different frequency than on this earth.
It is not comparable to sunlight. It was also quite dark in this intensive care room because I think it was night. That's how I perceived it. So it was quite dark in this room, and I moved towards this door frame, which was completely filled with light.
Und dieses Licht hatte, wie gesagt, eine andere Frequenz. Und ich hatte das Gefühl,
This light had a different frequency. I had the feeling that it was a slightly bluish tint, a mix of white and blue light. I was drawn to it. It was something I'd never seen in my whole life on Earth.
noch nicht so auf der Erde gesehen habe.
Then I slowly moved towards this light, very slowly at walking pace. And then I heard a voice that asked me, "Girl, do you want to go?" I was asked this question, but I didn't see anybody or anything. Just a voice that asked me, "Do you want to go?" That really was the exciting thing. I was standing in this dark room in front of the door frame, filled with white light and this blue color, this unique light frequency. Then I slowly moved towards this light, and I was asked this question, "Girl, would you like to go?"
Und in dem Moment,
At that moment, I reflected on the whole situation, if you can put it that way. I reflected on this and had only one thought: my parents.
Danke, waren meine Eltern. Mir sind sofort meine Eltern
I immediately thought of my parents, Mom, Dad.
in dem Moment.
And as I was having this thought, Mom and Dad, it pulled me back like a force. It pulled me backwards into my body at an incredible speed.
In einer Geschwindigkeit,
That was the kind of near-death experience I had.
There was all this spray of jet.
Okay, guys, so in this episode, I know it's a little different than what we usually do, but this is something that is real, and it does happen more than people do realize. So that's why we're not in our usual environment, going out doing investigations, and I feel like this is a perfect episode to do with us reaching over 100 subscribers, and it's really, how can we put it?
It's something different, and it's something that a lot of people go through, you know, that maybe they want to share their story, but they don't get a chance to, you know, and I think it'll help for people to hear, you know, a traumatic event like this coming from somebody close to us, actually our brother-in-law, and it's just something different, you know. That's all we wanted to do. But we will be doing EVPs tonight in this episode also.
Yes, I did bring my spirit box, and I finally upgraded to an actual speaker. The little one was just, it did its purpose, and may it rest in peace. So with that being said, I am going to turn the camera around and introduce you to our brother-in-law and let him tell you a little bit about himself. So just for the viewers, do you want to tell them your name and the experience that you remember from the beginning?
My name is Greg Mason. I was involved in a major automobile accident November 4th, 2012. Very severe, almost near fatal. But I'll tell you the story behind it. I was with my ex-wife. We were on vacation coming back from North Carolina, and we were in Louisiana. And it was late in the evening time. There was a big football game going on. And in Louisiana, convenience stores sell liquor that's 24 hours a day. And when there's a big game, there's a lot of drinking going on. So anyways, we had stopped at a convenience store. We had gotten some drinks, filled up with gas, and got back on the road. And we're heading back, probably 15-20 minutes back on the road. We're on I-10, heading back towards Houston. And right about the time we got near Lafayette, Louisiana, I was in the passenger seat. We were going about 70 miles an hour. And I had glanced, I happened to see a bright light in the side view mirror. So I turned around like this, and I looked back, and I could see a car very close. I could see the guy's face. He hit us from behind. We were in a 98 Chevrolet Tahoe two-door, and it's a 4x4, so it's set up kind of high. So basically I turned around, looked at her, said, we're about to get hit. As soon as I said that, we got hit. Once that happened, it pretty much catapulted the vehicle off the road. We flipped multiple times. It was pretty much end over end, like front to back, not necessarily side to side. I remember the first impact being the windshield. I could see grass and debris. Heard multiple, it was just very loud, noisy. And then once it stopped, once the car finally came to its final resting spot, I was awake, kind of. I could smell and hear fuel, and I'm thinking, oh, this thing's going to catch on fire. And then it was just kind of in and out of consciousness. At that point, I pretty much thought I was dead. And I could just feel my body shutting down. And when people talk about seeing the light, I saw the light. It's just a very, I can't describe the noise, kind of like a white noise. And I kind of like a tunnel, and I could see this light. And then once I kind of got close to it, the next thing I know, there was a paramedic in my face. And the paramedic started asking me a bunch of questions, and I guess right about that time, the kind of weird thing that happened was my phone had rung. And so the paramedic handed me my phone and says, "Is this your mother calling you?" I said, I was kind of out of it. They'd asked me my name and stuff like that, and I knew it. So they handed me my phone, and it was my mom. So they answered the phone for me, and then they talked to him for a while. But what was odd about that is I think maybe when I was halfway out of it, I might have tried to call her, to say my goodbye. I'm not sure. So at that point, he notified them what was going on. I guess I was already on a stretcher. The next thing I remember from that was getting loaded into the back of an ambulance, and them just talking to me. And I asked him, I said, well, how bad are my injuries? Because I could barely move. I said, well, you got some issues with your legs. So I said, well, will I walk again? Because I wasn't sure if I could. And he said, wiggle your toes. He said, yeah, you're just going to have a tough road ahead. At that point, I just told him to give me something that would knock me out so I wouldn't remember anything that happened after that. So once that happened, they took me to local hospital. I had 9 hours of surgery. I had broke both of my femurs. My right foot was shattered, and my left shoulder was broken, and my nose. So they did the surgery on my legs. So the next thing I know after that was, I didn't even know I was going into surgery. That just happened. But then the next thing I know was my dad coming into the intensive care, because I was in ICU for like 4 days, I think. Him coming in there, I guess it was like the following day after the accident. But in total, after that, 2 weeks later, I had another surgery on my shoulder. So I was in a hospital in Lafayette for a month, almost a month exactly. Then they transported me to a nursing facility in Webster, Texas, and I was there for 4 months. I had to learn how to walk again. I had to learn how to pick things up again. It was a long, long, long road. And then after that, once I got back into my house, which this is 5 months after the accident, then from there it was just adapting to everyday things, bathing, going to the bathroom, just moving around, because my mobility was very limited. But I had been, at that point, 3 days a week I was doing outpatient physical therapy.
Like
Trying
the
to get me to-
rehabilitation program.
Trying to get me back walking again without a walker and cane and all that kind of stuff. So, but I was out of work for a year, from pretty much from right before we went on vacation. So they let you take a year off, and so I went back like pretty much a year to the day. But I was still pretty bad shape then. But now, I mean, it's, I've always got pain, and I still have scars and all that stuff, but I can move around and I function. I have a much greater appreciation for things in life by far.
Like with the wreck, do you, like, what was your, like when it was happening, do you remember like what you were thinking? Like, because I know when I had a little wreck, my first thoughts were like, trying to call somebody, or like you said, you thought maybe you were trying to call your mom. Like, do you remember anything like when it was happening? Like,
when it was happening, I'm thinking, this is it, because I mean, when you're going 70 miles an hour on the freeway, and the guy that hit me, which I haven't added that in there, but I mean, he was doing probably 100 miles an hour. And then he tried to take off from the scene because his car pretty much went up underneath the back of ours. So the damage to his vehicle was minor. But when he hit us, I mean, I could see his face in the windshield of his car. That's how close he was. That's how, when I turned around, I saw the guy's face. And when I guess this is kind of trippy too. The paramedic that got me from the accident scene was the one that actually took me from the hospital to the facility that I was at in Webster. And so he was kind of telling me some of the stuff I wasn't aware of. One of the things he told me that it took him 45 minutes to get me out of the car, like jaws of life. The guy that hit us, his vehicle was like found like a half mile to a mile away from the accident scene on the opposite side of I-10. So he like tried to escape by going across the median, and he ended up hitting a tree because his car couldn't steer anymore.
oh my gosh.
So, and he had minor injuries, and he did have alcohol in his system. It was a long ordeal after that.
How much, if you don't mind me asking, like how much pain were you in? If you could describe like the pain, like for some people that might not know after.
I was in so much pain I didn't feel it.
Really?
If that makes any sense. Like I didn't know.
numb.
Your nerves were shot, maybe.
I didn't know. I guess our bodies, when you have so much going on, it kind of shuts your pain receptors down, because I couldn't feel anything.
So like numb, maybe.
That's why I was like, "Am I gonna be all right?" He's like, "Wiggle your toes," and I guess, I mean, based on the way the scars look on my legs, and that I broke both my femurs, I'm pretty sure at least one of them was like outside of my, and ripped my pants, was probably outside of my clothes. So, because he said your legs are in bad shape, but I was strapped to I was strapped down, so I couldn't look, and see what was going on.
To the gurney or to like a hospital bed?
The gurney.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Get your booty on the camera.
Sorry guys, the cat wants to be a part of the video.
But yeah, I mean, it was a long ordeal. And then, of course, after you have the accident, it's all the legal stuff that goes beyond that. One thing, though, that was kind of trippy was, of course, my parents came. They were there the following day, right after the accident. They drove from Houston out there. And my mom had given all of us these little angels that we would keep in our car. And it was just in like a little package. And she just said, "This is a guardian angel. This is, make sure you always have this in your car." So I'm not really thinking a whole lot of it. I used to just put it in my console or my glove box or whatever. And I guess the day after the wreck. So after they came and visited me at the hospital, they went to the accident scene, and they went to the lot where the car was and all that kind of stuff. But they went to the accident scene just to see if there was any belongings that might have scattered or whatever. And that angel was like resting next to the tree, like a tree that I guess we'd impacted a tree, but it was like upright resting next to a tree. So it was kind of
That's
trippy that was there.
Like a little sign.
Especially if you put it in something for it to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in like a package.
In the upright position, you said? Wow.
And coincidentally, but that was like it happened. It was November 4th, 2012, like right before midnight. So right before it was November 5th, and my grandma's birthday was that day. So.
Wow.
Whether that's anything,
Wow.
And your grandma has passed away, like she had passed away
Oh yeah.
before that.
When you seen the light, and you say you seen the light, like some people say they tried to go to it or they try to go away from it. Do you remember any of that, or did you just let yourself naturally go through the experience?
The best way I can describe, like I was saying, like that white noise. So I could feel my body like just shutting down.
Yeah.
I could feel like a really, really weak feeling, and then pretty much just kind of out of it. Like I thought, okay, I'm dying, and I thought I was dead.
Mm-hmm.
But right before that, medic started talking to me. That's when I had, I guess I was seeing the light. Not really, like I wasn't envisioning myself walking towards it. I didn't see myself out. I didn't have like an out of body experience,
Yeah.
but I could see a visual light, like a bright light,
Yeah.
in kind of a tunnel, and just the noise was just it was a very kind of soothing, just weird noise. I can't describe it.
But soothing.
Yeah, it wasn't like I wasn't scared.
Yeah.
Wasn't like I was.
And the white noise that you said you heard the white noise, that was part of that soothing sound. So
It
like
was just kind of
muffled, kind of maybe, or no, or clear.
It was pretty clear.
Oh, okay.
It was just it was and then like when people can really only that haven't been through something like this probably relate to movies that they've seen.
Yeah.
And I can't recall the movie that was on, that I've seen not too long ago, where I heard something similar to it.
Yeah.
And, I nudged my wife and was like, hey, it kind of sounded like that, and it was, kind of a similar deal. But
Wow.
it's kind of like things kind of narrow in. I don't know, it's weird. I can't really describe it.
Yeah, exactly. And unless you go through it, it's hard to. But I can piece together kind of, a little bit of the visuals, but I would never know until I, experience it. Like you said.
But it's like then, once they I guess put oxygen on me or revived me or whatever.
Yeah.
Then it was just like everything was kind of back to normal. Then they just started asking me questions like who I was, and they had my wallet, so they were just
Yeah.
they knew who I was.
Did they ask you like what year it was and all that? Really? Like
If I knew what day it was, where I was at, where we were coming from.
And did you know all that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, because fortunately, I didn't have any head injuries aside from
Wow.
some scrapes and a cut on my lip and
You're very fortunate, man. That's good, man. That's good.
surprisingly,
Yeah.
my nose was broken, but not badly. So
Yeah.
it wasn't. It could have been a lot worse.
Yeah. Definitely, man. You're sitting here with us now, and you're here to see another day. That's good to say. And we love you, man. We enjoy your company and we enjoy coming over here with you and my sister. So, great person, I'm glad you're here. And, it's...
Glad to be here. Pretty much after that happened, is when something like that happens to you, you kind of step back and start looking at your life differently, whether it be from a professional perspective or from a different personal perspective. And so, a lot of things changed in my life after the accident. Yes, it was a tough time. It was hard to get through, but at the same time, I met a lot of good people through it. And when something like that happens too, you get to see who really cares about you.
Exactly.
For-
Yeah.
Even people you thought were really good friends, not so much.
Yeah.
The people that are good to you, that really care for you and care about you, they come out. Even
Yeah.
people that I hadn't talked to in years, man, they just would show up to visit me and stuff like that. So, it kind of allows you to. I had a lot of time to think about stuff, and it allowed me to kind of reevaluate my life and how I did things. And once I recovered, it's just adapting to the way that I am now. I can't do all the stuff I used to be able to do.
Yeah.
Even if I want to, I can't.
Yeah.
There's just
Like
things
physically, you mean, right?
there's physically things I can't do.
That's understandable. I mean, you
So-
went through something very traumatic. I mean,
My strength isn't what it used to be, and my balance, stuff like that. But I can function.
but in return, you gain knowledge, like you said. You learned a lot. You learned a lot about the people around you, and I feel like you're a very patient person.
Very much so.
I feel like that has a lot to do with it. I don't know.
Very much
Sitting
so.
here talking to you just makes it seem like you're very patient. Because every time we spend time, here, you're very patient. You just sit there and you're like, it's not like you're in a rush to get nowhere.
Mm-mm.
And I feel like, I don't know. I just feel like it maybe. May have
Yeah, I
something to
mean,
do with it.
I would say before the accident, I wasn't as patient. I was more of an angry person, probably. I was probably a little more, I wouldn't say carefree, but I didn't think in depth about things,
Yeah.
It was kind of like, whatever. And after the accident, I am more patient. I don't put up with, from a job standpoint, when I'm working somewhere, I don't necessarily, I don't put up with as much as I used to
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
from that. Because it's just, to me, it's like, if you're doing something you absolutely hate, you work somewhere you hate, you're in a relationship that you don't like, things aren't well, like, you only live one life, as far as we know. So change it,
Yeah.
do things. And that's kind of what, my life is totally different now than it was, when this happened in 2012. So it's a whole different world for me now.
So has it opened your eyes also, like, spiritually wise? And because I know, like, off camera we talk a lot about, you're more in tune, like.
Yeah, I mean, yes. I think one thing that it has done for me, and I don't know, but I can read people pretty well. When I meet somebody, not always the first time I've met them, but maybe after I've been around them 2 or 3 times, I can tell whether maybe what their intentions are, or if they're a good person. And a lot of people that are close to me can I'll tell them, they'll bring somebody around. I'm like, But man, stay away from that person. Oh, they sing great. No, stay away from that person. And then, a little bit later, their true colors come out. So, I mean, I've never been like a religious person, but I think that some of my, I don't know, intuitiveness or certain things, maybe I'm a little bit sharper at, things like that. I've always been interested, even before this happened, I've always been interested in paranormal stuff. So, which I think spiritualness and paranormal, I think some of that kind of goes hand in hand. So,
yeah, definitely.
I can kind of look at a situation now, maybe more so than I could before, and predict the outcome before it happens, Not like to the T, but I can have a general idea, well, this is what's going to happen,
You mean with life in general?
Yeah, really, with life in general.
I do that a lot. Well,
know?
I mean, yeah, if you pay attention, you can kind of see the direction things are going. And I'll talk to her about things like that all the time, you know. And you know, I'll tell you, well, you know, this is happening. Well, this is most likely gonna happen. But I know you probably, you know, like you said, do it more so than I would, and you had a lot of time to think.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of people that I haven't talked to since before my accident. You know. And there's some people afterwards I talked to them a few times, and I haven't really talked to them much anymore. So, you know, and when new people come into my life, I have to evaluate and look and, you know, make sure that this is somebody that I really want around me. You know,
Definitely.
if it's not, then they don't stay.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I feed off of aura, like somebody's, their aura or their energy.
Right.
It can drain me just like somebody negative.
Yeah.
I can feel that in.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people out in the world that are like that.
Like so big on energy. Like she, I always tell people too, you know, that she like, I don't know what it is. She's very spiritual too. You know, it's just naturally in her. You know, maybe it's what happened in her past, but you know, I like that about her. I admire that. She knows. You know, I've explained that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, there's a difference between being spiritual and religious, and I think this probably it definitely woke me up spiritually. I wasn't probably a huge spiritually person before then, and I'm not like that now, like crazy about it, but I'm more in tune, I guess, you know.
Yeah.
I'm more in tune. I can pick up on things maybe better than I could in the past.
Do you, you know, since we've got to towards the, you know, not the end, but you know, I wanted to ask you a couple questions if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
And it may not pertain to the accident, but like you were just now saying, you're more spiritually in tuned. Do you believe in the afterlife?
Absolutely.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
What is your opinion like, or your thoughts? Like, I would like to hear that. Would you like to?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had personal experiences several times with afterlife of some sort. You know, from different places I've been. I've done ghost hunts and things like that. So I've witnessed things. I've seen things on, you know. So yeah, I mean, I definitely have and I don't think my opinion of that's any greater than it was before my accident. Probably the same. But yeah, I mean, I definitely believe in that.
Believe in the afterlife. Okay, cool. See.
Yeah, I definitely want to do like the EVP, and just to like validation, like and see if, you know, because like with your wife, or your ex-wife, her injuries, were they?
Oh yeah, she had hers were mainly wounds. Like she had a bunch of really bad open wounds. It almost cut her in half. So it severed her intestine. So she had a pretty large recovery too. It just wasn't, I guess it wasn't as physical. She could still move and get around. But it was, you know, hers was with her digestive system essentially, you know. She had a colostomy bag for a while. She had to have what they call wound vacs, and then she had wound care that came in, and I mean, she had open wounds, big ones.
They had to care for them.
That were deep, and they had to close up, and so they had to put these like what they call wound vacs on them, and special creams and stuff to care for large wounds.
So they wouldn't get infected. Man,
Right.
Dude.
Right, and then then she had to have a surgery to reattach her intestine together. So
Really.
you know,
And then she's fine after all that. She's fine living.
Yeah, yeah. She made a full recovery after that. You know,
Wow.
she just has a lot of scar tissue, and you can't physically you wouldn't know. She's just got a lot of scars, like underneath her stomach area and stuff like that. Yeah.
Wow. And I just had one more question, if you don't mind. Do you believe that like our soul is energy?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't know how
You
to.
don't know?
That I don't know. I mean, probably. I mean, the things I've experienced with paranormal, I've experienced anything from like voices, things moving.
I mean, do you even some people don't even believe we have a soul. I mean.
You know,
never know.
I don't really know what the afterlife is. I don't know if it's another dimension.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's, it seems like at least some of the experiences I've witnessed, kind of like they're doing what they did before they passed away, or before something happened to them. It seems like whatever state they were in. When they passed is kind of where they're at. So, the theory behind that I've heard is like, well, they weren't finished doing what they were doing. Mm-hmm. Or it was something sudden or very tragic that happened. And like, I guess their soul or whatever it might be is still trapped in that realm. Mm-hmm. And hasn't, they're...
I believe some of that same stuff.
When they want to try to communicate with people, that's when they will move objects or, they draw energy from other things and they can speak. I mean, I've heard voices, I've heard laughing, I've heard, I've seen items move when there's no other way to explain it than something
paranormal
doing it,
right?
I've seen on the cameras what was that camera we were talking about the other day? I always forget the thermal camera. Thank you. I've seen objects on the thermal camera before that clearly resembled a human being standing next to an actual human being, and that human being that showed up on the thermal was not physically there. And so, some of the tools that are used in the paranormal field, I've seen them all work in some form or fashion. And I've been fortunate enough. I've been on some paranormal stuff with, some famous people in the paranormal field. So.
Yeah, definitely. And we were talking to Greg about us all doing something together.
Yeah, hopefully we can get him to join us on something. Yeah, that would be exciting. I think that will.
If I can get your sister to just a little more working on patience right now.
Okay.
If I can get her to become a little more patient, we can.
We
can go somewhere.
Yeah, man, it'll be fun.
We'll plan it out to where it's fun.
I believe it is fun.
We will. We'll
you
work on
believe
it
in
together.
the fun, just not the.
I'm just not patient.
That's funny. So if we do the EVPs, I mean, do you have any questions like that you would want to ask?
Validation. What were you saying about validation?
If Greg had any, like, when we do the spirit box, if he had any questions that he would want to know, like, validation wise, like, if maybe his grandmother was there, or...
Okay, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, if that would probably be, because I don't know that I don't know.
It's interesting. That'd be a good question.
I mean, honestly, I don't know with that happening. I don't know if she happened to be there, or my grandpa, or
maybe we could ask,
or if
who his guardian angel is.
Right.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I feel like over the years, all of the dumb stuff that I've done, and nothing happened to me. I feel like somebody's probably
Watching over you.
watching
Even
over me.
The angel pendant,
Yeah.
see if that
That-
could be validated.
You know, and
That's a good
I mean,
question.
again,
That's a good
somebody
question,
could have
right?
seen that, and when they were picking the car up and put it up there, I don't
You just
know.
don't know.
Don't know.
Yeah.
It could have just landed that way. No telling.
That's a good question, man. And like we should, yeah.
Okay. So we will continue and start with our investigation with the spirit box. And thank you, Greg, for sharing your story.
Thank you.
It does mean a lot. A lot of people don't realize how some people just take life for granted.
Yeah, I mean that's the one thing I would tell people. Maybe before I was in a hurry to get places. Now, not as much. I'm definitely a lot more patient with things.
Yeah.
And when I see people, especially the line of work that I'm in, when I see people just get really upset over something so small, and like their blood pressure's boiling, and they're just like, unfortunately, with it not, I'm not being a business owner, so I can't tell them how I really feel. But I want to, I mean, sometimes I will, on a very PC level, just be like, it's not that big a deal,
It could be worse. Things could be
Right.
worse.
But people freak out over stuff that's just not, it's not worth it. There's no reason to get yourself worked up over, small things. And that's definitely, I mean, one of the positives that has come out of, and I was always a little bit like that, but not to the way I am now.
Yeah, to that extreme.
Yeah. Yeah, 'cause I always, and it's sad too, like with cops texting and driving or drinking and driving. And it's sad that the people that drink and drive in situations like that happen,
And
they're the ones that end up coming out
Okay.
unscratched.
Yeah, I mean the guy that hit me, he had a passenger with him too. So one of them fractured their foot, just minor fracture.
it's selfish.
I think
man.
it was their heel. I think they fractured their heel on their foot, and the other one fractured their arm. That was it. So they probably had a recovery time of a few weeks,
Yeah.
maybe a month.
Compared to yours being like
And,
6 to 9
mine
months.
mine was, over a year. I mean, a couple of
Yeah.
years when you put it in, really. I mean,
I can't imagine.
at least I mean, I was functioning enough to go back to work after a year. But I mean, when I went back to work, I was on a cane, and I could only stand for so long. I couldn't sit for too long either. I mean,
Really? Sit?
because just circulation getting in my
Yeah,
legs.
yeah,
Because I'm, just learning to move around. Because when you don't move around a whole lot,
You forget how to walk and
when you don't move around a whole lot, your muscles go quick, and so relearning how to do simple things like people that take for granted walking,
Yeah.
or getting up to grab something out of the refrigerator, or going to the bathroom in a normal bathroom. I mean, things like that. That kind of stuff people take for granted. And if you've always known how to do it and you've never had an injury, then it doesn't mean anything to you. But when something happens and your whole world changes and it's an instant, that crash, I don't know. It what seemed like hours was seconds,
Like, when is it gonna stop?
It seemed like it was going on forever,
Really?
and it was probably, 20 seconds, whatever it was. It wasn't very long. So, it's just getting back into the real world after everything, and being able to go do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. I mean, yeah, it took a while, and learning how to, I had to learn how to grab a can again, And there was a period when I couldn't feed myself. I couldn't, someone had to feed me. You know, so I had to learn how to do all that kind of stuff again, just from nerve damage and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, that's what people take for granted, you know. So that's why when I say, like, when I see people freaking out over just stupid things, you know, that person could leave whatever business they're at giving somebody a hard time, just like it's the end of the world, you know, like, oh, I can't function without this. And they leave, and they could get into a car accident and pass away right then and there, you know? Or they could get into an accident and the same thing happened to them. You know, it's just, I mean, your life can change like that.
You're not in control.
Not at all.
That's when people realize, I've heard a lot of people say when they get into accidents, they've realized that they're not in control.
Mm-hmm. You know, and you might not wake up tomorrow. You know, and those are things that, like, you know, with me at least, I mean, some people, I kept a pretty positive attitude, and I had, my parents especially, which are amazing, my brothers too, were like by my side all the time. So, you know, when I was in the nursing home, my mom, every morning she was there to see me. When my dad would come, not every evening because he was still working and stuff, but he'd stop in at least a few times a week. My brothers would come see me. You know, so I had a very strong support system. And I think that's important too. Maybe, you know, if I didn't have that, I can't say that my outcome would have been the same. But I had people cheering me on, you know.
Wow.
I had cheerleaders, so to speak. So.
Very good support system.
Yeah,
Wow,
that's
man.
good to have.
Absolutely.
That's great. I'm happy to hear your story, man. It's for you to share with everyone and share with us, because like I said, some people out there that have probably been through this and haven't shared it with anybody.
Yeah, I mean, you know, in my time, when I talk to some customers of mine or whatever, I've only really talked to one other person. And, you know, the accident happened, what, 8 years ago? Almost 8 years ago. And I've really only talked to one other person that was kind of on... We had similar things, you know, similar things that happened. And we could relate to each other real easily. They understood what what we were talking about. But you know, it's tough to kind of explain to people. Or, I mean, there's people out there that are going through some stuff, and, you know, something happened, maybe a minor accident, but, you know, sometimes minor accidents, you can get injuries that are severe, you know, too. And so, you know, people need to see, you know, I went through quite a lot, you know, and, you know, having to learn how to walk again. And fortunately I could talk, so I didn't have an issue with that. But just, you know, like I said, grabbing things, getting up, going to the bathroom, taking a shower, getting in and out of bed. You know, I couldn't do that on my own. I couldn't, you know, getting into a wheelchair. I mean, I had to, you know, roll around in a wheelchair for a while. And then even, you know, after that, getting in and out of a car, you know, that took a while. And there's having to learn how to drive again, you know, at least from with my feet, you know, because...
And wanting to. Being able to, you know, say, hey, do I want to do this again? That's brave. In my eyes, that's brave.
Like, yeah, because
For
people
real.
get, like, traumatized or, like,
Yeah,
PTSD
man.
from...
Oh, man.
You
I
know,
couldn't tell you how bad I was.
you know, it doesn't really... If I'm driving at night and somebody comes up behind me, it'll kind of jolt me a little bit.
Yeah, I imagine.
I know there was one occasion where we were going to eat dinner one night, and I'm always, when I'm driving, I'm like looking forward and I'm looking in my rearview mirror. Always, I'm looking everywhere. But there was one occasion when I looked behind us. I was like, guys, there's about to be a wreck behind us, and I was able to avoid us getting rear-ended by watching my rear view. You know, I mean, it was...
And somebody got hit.
Oh, yeah, it was a pretty bad wreck. And it happened right behind us on 45 on the... in the right lane we were there, but the traffic kind of slowed down, and I could see it coming. You know.
Can I just jump in and say, like, I know which one you're talking, because we were with Angelica, and it was crazy the way that he found, like, I didn't know why he was like jumping onto the side of the road, and he's like, "There's a wreck behind us. Like that person's about to," and then boom.
Wow. So that's exactly.
It was crazy.
That's what he was talking about earlier about him being able to predict the
intuition.
outcome. Yeah, by just seeing the actions of somebody.
He does that all the time.
For real?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, maybe I have become, slightly intuitive, because sometimes I can literally get inside her head. I don't know how.
I'm like, stop. Because he'll like, I'm like, I want to go to Lowe's, and he's like, for blah, 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 or whatever. He already knows what I want. Or if I'm like about to put something on, he already knows what I'm going to put on.
Really?
Or, yeah. Or that I'm hungry. Like, it's weird.
Well,
He tells me when I need to eat.
That's
like,
always.
I was about to go get something to eat. I won't even say anything. And he's right there. Or bring me a drink. Like, even the little things.
That's
you know?
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I can say didn't really exist before.
And yeah.
You know, but I mean, I can almost finish sentences for her, and if she's just kind of got this look on her face, it's not all the time, it's sometimes, but I can pretty much like kind of probe in there a little bit and figure out what's going on, you know.
Yeah, that's cool. That's kind of cool. I mean, as long as it's not controlling your mind.
It's creepy. It does.
Think about a foot rub, and then.
I mean, he does. He'll rub my back. I don't even tell him. You know, I'm like, man, my back hurts or whatever. I won't even say it, and he'll just be like, I'm like, oh, wow. Where did they make you at? I'd make millions.
That's funny.
That's cool.
Well, we are going to take the EVPs outside just for safety precautions for sister.
We don't want to chance bringing anything inside or anything like that.
I think we'll be okay. I mean, if it's here, it's here. It's not. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
I think we should start outside at least, just to be safe. And if you want to, we could.
Here, I'll pause this.
It's not,